ओम ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोन् श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरोन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. So we had done till 11th sloka of the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Now we will start with 12th. So this, from here we have the blowing of various conch shells of all the great personalities will be mentioned here. Text 12. तस्य सञ्जनयन् हर्षं कुरुवृद्ध पितामहः सिंहनादं विनद्योच्चैः शङ्खं दद्मो प्रतापवान्. Then Bhishma, the great valiant grandsire of the Kuru dynasty, the grandfather of the fighters, blew his conch shell very loudly, making a sound like the roar of a lion, giving Duryodhana joy. Purport: the grandsire of the Kuru dynasty could understand the inner meaning of the heart of his grandson Duryodhana, and out of his natural compassion for him, he tried to cheer him by blowing his conch shell very loudly, befitting his position as a lion. Indirectly, by the symbolism of the conch shell, he informed his depressed grandson Duryodhana that he had no chance of victory in the battle because the Supreme Lord Krishna was on the other side. So why conch shell? No, it is Bhishma who is blowing the conch shell, but then why it is announcing the victory of the Pandavas? Because Krishna is there on the side of the Pandavas, and conch shell is a symbol of Krishna, Sankha Chakra Gada Padma, right? So that is conch shell is showing that this these people will be like victorious. And then, but still, it was his duty to conduct the fight, and no pains would be spared in that connection. Okay, text 13. Tata shankascha beryascha panavanaka gomukah sahasai hanyanta sashabdastumulo bhavat. So here, one nice thing to note, this word tumulaha is there, right? So the translation is tumultuous. No, it is like almost the same word in the English also. After that, after that, the conch shells, drums, bugles, trumpets, and horns were all suddenly sounded, and the combined sound was tumultuous. Okay, text 14. So this is amazing sloka where Krishna is getting introduced. At least as a third party, is getting introduced here. So let's chant the sloka. Tatasvethair hayer yukte mahati skandane stito madavah pandavaschaiva divyau shankau pradatmatuhu. Okay. On the other side, both Lord Krishna and Arjuna, stationed on a great chariot drawn by white horses, sounded their transcendental conch shells. Purport. In contrast with the conch shell blown by Bhishma Dev, the conch shells in the hands of Krishna and Arjuna are described as transcendental. The sounding of the transcendental conch shells indicate that there was no hope of victory for the other side because Krishna was on the side of the Pandavas. Jayastu Pandu Putranam Yesham Pakshe Janardhana. So it's a very nice this one saying. Jayastu means victory will be to Panduputranam. Now, why? Because in their side, Esham Pakshe means side, Janardana. So the Lord is there on their side. Right? So victory is always with persons like the sons of Pandu because Lord Krishna is associated with them. In fact, Sanjaya concludes Bhagavad Gita. He is the one who's speaking it. The whole narration is going between Sanjaya and Dhritarashtra, and he is mentioning that what is it? Yatra Yogeshwaro Krishna, Yatra Partha Dhanurdharaha, Tatra Shri Vijayo Bhutir, Dhruva Nitil Matir Mama. So he tells that wherever there is Arjuna and wherever there is Krishna, so there all victory, opulence, and good fortune, everything will be there. So that is the opinion. No, he mentions Sanjaya's opinion, and that's what happens also. So here we see that victory is towards sons of Pandu because Krishna is associated with them. Right? And whenever and wherever the Lord is present, the goddess of fortune is also there because the goddess of fortune never lives alone without her husband. Therefore, victory and fortune were awaiting Arjuna as indicated by the transcendental sound produced by the conch shells of Vishnu or Lord Krishna. Besides that, the chariot on which both the friends were seated had been donated by Agni, the fire god, to Arjuna. And this indicated that this chariot was capable of conquering all sides wherever it was drawn over the three worlds. And so this is like this chariot gifted by Agni has a special capacity that it is unconquerable. Wherever that chariot goes, right? So that's also one of the added things. So, but the primary strength we can see is that it is Krishna being there. So many other things are there, like of this world. So a particular demigod has given something, so it is unconquerable. There can be a bigger demigod than that demigod, and his whatever he gives may be like more powerful, right? So in that way, like there are so many different gradations are there, but we should take a note of the special presence of Lord Krishna. So that is like really very powerful, because Lord is the ultimate proprietor of everything, and if He is present, then no, there is no other. This one is necessary. As I was mentioning from the Ramayana, so the what is it? The Vanara Sena. So they were only few in number, and in comparison to the, or probably like no, they were there in number, but then they were not having no well-trained, equipped. They were not well trained in military affairs and things like that, and they were only throwing stones and trees and things like that. So, but then the opposite side was Ravana's side were very, very capable and they were fully equipped with military strength. But because Lord Ram was there, so even they were not having the modern warfare or whatever is the state of art warfare equipments at that point in time. But still they won. It is because of the presence of the Lord. So that's the most important aspect. That needs to be seen. Right? Okay, text 15. Panchajanyam Rishikesho Devadattam Dhananjayah Paunram Datmo Mahashankham Bhima Karma Brukodaraha. Lord Krishna blew his conch shell called Panchajanya. Arjuna blew his, the Devadatta, and Bhima, the ferocious eater and performer of Herculean tasks, blew his terrific conch shell called Poundra. Purport. Lord Krishna is referred to as Rishikesha in this verse because he is the owner of all senses. The living entities are part and parcel of him, and therefore the senses of the living entities are also part and parcel of his senses. The impersonalist cannot account for the senses of the living entities, and therefore they are always anxious to describe all living entities as senseless or impersonal. So even in the liberated stage, we will have our senses. No, we will never become senseless. Always we will have our senses. And right now, whatever senses we have, it's like if we have eyes. So this is like the spectacles. The soul has the real eyes, and the soul is the one who is perceiving. And the eyeballs that we have in the body, it's almost like a spectacle only. It is an external apparatus for the soul. So the real senses are there in the soul, and the body is just stitched according to the size and the need of the soul. So the real senses are actually in the this one actually in the soul, the living entity, right? So here it's mentioned the living entity is not senseless. No, they have the senses, right? And then the Lord, situated in the heart of all living entities, directs their senses, but He directs in terms of surrender of the living entity. And this is a very important thing. In case, in terms of surrender of the living entity, if a person is surrendered more, so then the Lord directs him more. If the person is not surrendered, then the Lord actually doesn't direct him much. Hmm. Okay, so. Hmm. And in the case of a pure devotee, he directly controls the senses. You know, so this because a pure devotee is fully surrendered to the Lord, so the Lord directly controls the senses of the pure devotees. Right. So whatever the pure devotees do, we can directly take it as that's the way the Lord wants. No, they are just completely um, no, they're just puppets in the hand of the Lord. So even Prabhupada writes in the Jaladuta prayers, no, I'm just a puppet in your hand. So you make me dance as you like, right? So in that way, like pure devotees, this one, they are completely under the control. No, their senses are completely under the control of the Lord. Rishikesha, Rishikena Sevanam, Rishikesha Sevanam, Bhakti Ruchyate. So that's, this particular, this one is very important. Hmm. So if we are less surrendered, then accordingly the Lord will take less control. If you are more surrendered to the Lord, then the Lord will take more control. Okay. Here on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, the Lord directly controls the transcendental senses of Arjuna, and thus his particular name or name of Rishikesha. Okay, so here another important aspect we can see. Sometimes people say that, no, why are you not taking up to Krishna consciousness? Why are you not coming to temple and things like that? No, maybe the Lord is not willing. No, Lord is not wishing. That's why I'm not coming. So he is not that surrendered. Why will the Lord wish him? No, why will the Lord take so much of trouble to control him and direct him? No, if Lord's desire is there, I'll come, like that. So first of all, your desire should be there, and if we execute our desire to surrender to the Lord, then the Lord will desire for us. So but if we don't, no, if we don't desire, if we don't surrender to the Lord, or if we don't have the desire to come to the temple or practice devotion and things like that, so then what will the Lord do? So Lord will just simply, no, upadrishta and anumanta. So that is the roles that is clearly mentioning for the people who are not surrendered to him. So he only does these two roles. Upadrishta, he just observes whatever he's doing. He's not going to tell, okay, no, no, you're doing something wrong. No, you should not do this. He will not tell that. So Upadrishta. And Anumanta, no, he will sanction. No, whatever you ask for, it will sanction. If you have the sufficient karma balance, it will be sanctioned. Otherwise, it will be sanctioned later on. So, but then, no, there is no argument or there is no negotiation and things like that. The Lord is saying, okay, you want this, you take it. So if a devotee is surrendered to the Lord, and then he is telling that, my Lord, I want to do this, but then is it right or not? So then the Lord will take interest, and no, he will tell. But if I am just thinking that, no, I'm not surrendering myself to the Lord, then the Lord will not dictate. And here in this scene, we can see, the Supreme Lord Krishna, who's Rishikesha, who's directly taking charge of the reins of Arjuna. He's directly taking charge of the, or taking control of the Arjuna's chariot. Right? So this is a very nice thing. It is happening. So we can directly understand Arjuna as a pure devotee of the Lord. Right? Otherwise, the Lord would not take the trouble to go and control the chariot of Arjuna. And now, by the instructions, he is controlling the mind of Arjuna. So he will not do this until unless Arjuna is a surrendered devotee, pure devotee of the Lord. Okay, the Lord has different names according to his different activities. For example, his name is Madhusudana because he killed the demon of the name Madhu. His name is Govinda because he gives pleasure to the cows and to the senses. So, Go means cows and Go means senses also. So when we say, sannyasi says Goswami, that means they are master of their senses. It is not that they are slave of their senses. Whatever the senses dictate, they will do. No, they are master of the senses. Whatever they dictate, the senses will follow. Okay, and real control of the senses means applying all the senses in the service of the Lord. So that is called real Goswami, right? And his name is Vasudeva because he appeared as the son of Vasudev. His name is Devaki Nandana because he accepted Devaki as his mother. His name is Yashoda Nandana because he awarded his childhood pastimes to Yashoda at Vrindavan. His name is Partha Sarathi because he worked as a charioteer of his friend Arjuna. Similarly, his name is Rishikesha because he gave direction to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Arjuna is referred to as Dhananjaya in this verse because he helped his elder brother in fetching wealth when it was required by the king to make expenditures for different sacrifices. Similarly, Bhima is known as Vrikodara because he could eat as ferociously as he could perform Herculean tasks, such as killing the demon Hidimba. So, particular types of conch shell were blown by different personalities on the side of the Pandavas, beginning with lords, were all very encouraging to the fighting soldiers. On the other side, there were no such credits, nor the presence of Lord Krishna, the supreme director, nor that of the goddess of fortune. So they were predestined to lose the battle, and that was the message announced by the sounds of the conch shells. Okay, it's quite self-clear. So we will continue. 16 to 18. Ananta Vijayam Raja Kuntiputro Yudhishthirah Nakulah Sahadevascha Sugosha Manipushpako Kashyascha Parameshvasah Chikandi cha Maharatah Drishtadyumno Viratascha Satyakischa Parajitah Drupado Draupadeyascha Sarvashah Prithivipate Saubhadrascha Mahabahuः Shankhan Dadmuhu Pratat Pratat. Okay. King Yudhishthira, the son of Kunti, blew his conch shell, the Ananta Vijaya, and Nakula and Sahadev blew the Sugosha and Manipushpaka. That great uh, archer, the king of Kashi, the great fighter Shikandi, Drishtadyumna, Virata, the unconquerable Satyaki, Drupada, the sons of Draupadi, and others, O king, such as the mighty armed son of Subhadra, all blew their respective conch shells. Okay, purport. Sanjaya informed King Dhritarashtra very tactfully that his unwise policy of deceiving the sons of Pandu and endeavoring to enthrone his own sons on the seat of kingdom was not very laudable. The signs already clearly indicated that the whole Kuru dynasty would be killed in that great battle, beginning with the grandsire Bhishma, down to the grandsons like Abhimanyu and others, including kings from many states of the world. All were present there and all were doomed. The whole catastrophe was due to King Dhritarashtra because he encouraged the policy followed by his sons. So this is the conch shell blowing. And we see that in somewhere I was hearing that these from the side of the Pandavas, whosoever name is mentioned, so they were the only surviving people. No, it seems in the end of the battle of Kurukshetra. The text 19, Sagosho Dardharashtanam Hridayani Vyadarayat Nabascha Prithivim Chaiva Tumulopyanunadayan. The blowing of these different conch shells became uproarious, vibrating both in the sky and on the earth. It shattered the hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra. Okay, purport. When Bhima and others on the side of Duryodhana, when Bhishma and others on the side of Duryodhana blew their respective conch shells, there was no heartbreaking on the part of Pandavas. Such are not mentioned. But in this particular verse, it is mentioned that the hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra were shattered by the sounds vibrated by the Pandavas party. That is due to the Pandavas and their confidence in Lord Krishna. One who takes shelter of the Supreme Lord has nothing to fear even in the midst of greatest calamity. Right? So this is a very important point. So if you see the Kaurava side, there is physical estimation, there is greater strength, and greater number of soldiers and everything is there. But still, even after that, so they are constantly in anxiety. And then by seeing the conch shell sound, so they are so much afraid. It doesn't necessary that it is not necessary that a person like somebody has to be like very powerful. So if he has Krishna in his side, so then immediately the opposite side is no, they will have a lot of tension, right? So the person who has Krishna in their side, so they can be very, very peaceful. So it is nicely mentioned here, one who takes shelter of Supreme Lord has nothing to fear even in the midst of greatest calamity. No, a person can no face any big calamity, no, if he has taken shelter of the Lord properly. Right. So text 20. Atavyavasthitan drishtva dardarashtraन् kapitvajaha pravrute shastra sampate dhanurudyamya pandavah ऋषिकेशं तदा वाक्यमिदं आह महीपते. At that time, Arjuna, the son of Pandu, seated in the chariot bearing the flag marked with Hanuman, took up his bow and prepared to shoot his arrows. O king, after looking at the sons of Dhritarashtra drawn in military array, Arjuna then spoke to Lord Krishna these words. Purport. The battle was just about to begin. It is understood from the above statement that the sons of Dhritarashtra were more or less disheartened by the unexpected arrangement of military force by the Pandavas, who were guided by the direct instructions of Lord Krishna on the battlefield. The emblem of Hanuman on the flag of Arjuna is another sign of victory because Hanuman cooperated with Lord Ram in the battle between Rama and Ravana, and Lord Ram emerged victorious. Now both Ram and Hanuman were present on the chariot of Arjuna to help him. Lord Krishna is Rama himself, and wherever Lord Ram is, his eternal servitor Hanuman and his eternal consort Sita, the goddess of fortune, are present. So very nice. This one is mentioned here. In fact, it is mentioned. There is a small story is there. You know, when all the Pandavas were there in the Vanavas. So at that time, you know, like once Draupadi was asking for a kind of a different kind of this one golden kind of a lotus, and Bhima, you know, went to get that lotus flower. So he had to go long distance, you know, climbing mountains and things like that. So on the way, you know, there was an old monkey that was lying down, and then he was asking that monkey to get away from the path. But then the monkey complained, saying that, no, I'm very old, no, I cannot move. You only move me, and things like that. So then, like Bhima tries to move, but then he's not able to move. Then he understands it is a very great personality, and then that is none other than Hanuman. And then he promises Bhima that he'll be present in the battle of Kurukshetra and in the flag of Arjuna. And when Bhima would shout, no, Hanuman's voice will accompany that voice of Bhima. And just by hearing the shouting of Bhima, many many people would die, it seems, no, just by the shout. So no, Bhima was like he was just terrorizing the whole battlefield just by his shouting, you know. And okay, therefore Arjuna had no cause to fear any enemies whatsoever, and above all, the Lord of the senses, Lord Krishna, was personally present to give him direction. Thus, all good counsel was available to Arjuna in the matter of executing the battle in such auspicious conditions arranged by the Lord for his eternal devotee, lay the signs of assured victory. Okay, text 22, 21 and 22. Arjuna vacha senayorabhayor madhye ratam sthapaya mechuta yavadetha niriksheham yodukaman avasthitan kairmaya sahayodavyam asmin rana samudyame. Arjuna said, O infallible one, please draw my chariots between the two armies so that I may see those present here who desire to fight and with whom I must contend this great trial of arms. Purport. Although Lord Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, out of his causeless mercy, he was engaged in the service of his friend. He never fails in his affection for his devotees, and thus he is addressed herein as infallible. As charioteer, he had to carry out the order of Arjuna, and since he did not hesitated to do so, he is addressed as infallible. Hmm. So this is a very, very amazing introduction of Lord Krishna that's happening here in Bhagavad Gita. Now he is introduced as a servant of his devotee, Bhakta Vatsala, or a person who is very dear to his devotees, or a person who takes care of his devotees just like a cow takes care of its calf. That's Bhakta Vatsala. And then here it's even more than that. He's getting introduced in Bhagavad Gita as a servant of his devotees. That's a really very amazing aspect. Hmm? So, okay. Although he had accepted the position of a charioteer for his devotee, his supreme position was not challenged. In all circumstances, he is the supreme personality of God and Rishikesha, the Lord of the total senses. The relationship between the Lord and his servitor is very sweet and transcendental. The servitor is always ready to render service to the Lord. And similarly, the Lord is always seeking an opportunity to render some service to the devotee. So this is the mood of the Lord. The Lord is always eager to render service to his devotees. He takes greater pleasure in his pure devotees, assuming the advantageous position of ordering him that he does in being the giver of the orders. So the Lord likes this thing. Lord likes the this one um, being like taking the orders of his devotees and then serving them and things like that. So in that way, like we can see that um, he's not he's not very much liking that position where he's ordering and everybody are following. So that's not giving him no greatest pleasure. That is why in the form of Krishna, so we can see that Krishna in the Vrindavan, nobody gives any value to him as Supreme Lord. No, Mother Yashoda beats him or ties him up with this one, and people are making fun with him, and then sometimes he loses the match with his friends, and things like that. So many things happen. So it's like he's just like one of them, and he's not assuming a special position of always ordering. Everybody is attracted to him. Everybody are mad after Krishna, but then they're not attracted to Krishna because he's our master and whatever he says we will do. It's not like that. So Krishna is actually rendering service to his devotees, and he's accepting a subordinate position, right? So in that way, we can see that this Krishna likes this kind of position where he is subordinate and his devotee is controller of him. Since he is master, everyone is under his orders and no one is above him to order him. But when he finds that a pure devotee is ordering him, he obtains transcendental pleasure, although he is infallible master in all circumstances. As a pure devotee of the Lord, Arjuna had no desire to fight with his cousins and brothers, but he was forced to come onto the battlefield by the obstinacy of Duryodhana, who was never agreeable to any peaceful negotiation. Therefore, he was very anxious to see who the leading persons present on the battlefield were. Although there was no question of peacemaking endeavor on the battlefield, he wanted to see them again and to see how much they were bent upon demanding an unwanted war. So at this point in time, many times we get this question in Gita course that the conchs were blown, and then fight is supposed to start, and at that time, like how is it that they were peacefully seeing everything and having a discussion, and whole Bhagavad Gita is getting narrated and things like that. So generally, the answer that we give is it is not a street fight that is happening. No, wherever you get a chance, like no hit. So it is not like that. So if the opposite party is not willing to fight, so a person cannot force him into fight, right? So it is almost all the time a person who's dying, he's willingly dying. Why he's willingly dying? Just before he's to be killed. If he says no, I am going off the battle, so the opposite person has to leave. He cannot say like no, I will kill you at any cost. So he cannot tell that. So no, that is why Some deviations were taken when Karna was killed. He was not ready to fight the battle. He was telling like, no, give me some time. And then, Krishna told, no giving time, no, just kill him. So because he did the same thing to Abhimanyu, right? So these great generals, like they all got together to kill one small boy. No, Abhimanyu was so powerful, though he was just a small boy. He was very, very powerful. No, Karna, Bhishma, and so many other great warriors had to come together to actually control him. So and kill him. So they actually killed Abhimanyu without any weapons, and he was not ready. Like he was telling that, no, give me a weapon, I'll fight with you. No, don't do this impartial kind of this one. But then they didn't listen. So tit for tat, like no, he did that. So no appropriate karma should be given to him. So that time the breaking of rules were there. So that was like no, that was a calculated this one. It is not some haphazard thing. And now the warriors here, no, they want to just discuss some things and things like that. It is not proper etiquette for the opposite side to start the battle. No, it is not a street fight. We should always remember it is a dharma yuddha, and everything was happening perfectly on the basis of the dharma. And the Kshatriyas on the battlefield, they are not afraid of life. So in fact, it is mentioned that these various Kshatriyas, they used to come from various places, and they may not be so powerful like Bhima and Karna and Arjuna and all these people, but they were for them it is a great chance, great opportunity. Their hands are itching to get into a battle like this. Even if they are getting killed over there, that they consider to be like perfection of their life. So to get a match like that is a very difficult thing. So they were all very eager to come and take part in the battle, and even if they died, it is willingly they died. So no, it is not that like jabardasti, like they were taken to the battlefield, and then they were like, even if they want to run away, like they didn't have any chance. It's not like that. If they want to run away, like nobody will stop. They'll say like, no, the person who's running away is a coward. No, who will fight with him? Even if he comes tomorrow, I'll not fight with him. So that will be the kind of attitude in the Dharma Yuddha. So it was like real fight between courageous and like very very strong people, right? It is not an ordinary scene over there. Hmm? Okay, so we'll continue the purport. Therefore, he was very anxious to see whose leading persons present on the battlefield were. And although there was no question of peacemaking endeavor on the battlefield, he wanted to see them again and to see how much they were bent upon demanding an unwanted war. Text 23. Yochamana naveksheham yethetra samagataha dardharashtasya durbuddher yuddhe priyachikishavaha. Okay. Let me see those who have come here to fight, wishing to please the evil-minded son of Dhritarashtra. Okay. It was an open secret that Duryodhana wanted to usurp the kingdom of Pandavas by evil plans in collaboration with his father Dhritarashtra. Therefore, all persons who had joined the side of Duryodhana must have been birds of the same feather. No, that is, he is evil-minded, and all those who have joined him must also be evil-minded. Arjuna wanted to see them on the battlefield before the fight was begun, just to learn who they were. But he had no intention of proposing peace negotiations with them. It was also a fact that he wanted to see them to make an estimate of the strength which he had to face, although he was quite confident of victory because Krishna was there. Krishna was sitting by his side. Okay, text 24. Sanjaya uvacha eva mukto rishikesho gudakeshena bharata senayorubayor madhye stapayitva ratotamam. Sanjaya said, O descendant of Bharata, having thus been addressed by Arjuna, Lord Krishna drew up the fine chariot in the midst of the armies of both parties. Purport. In this verse, Arjuna is referred to as Gudakesha. Gudakesha means sleep. Gudaka means sleep. And one who conquers sleep is called Gudakesha. Sleep also means ignorance. So Arjuna conquered both sleep and ignorance because of his friendship with Krishna. As a great devotee of Krishna, he could not forget Krishna even for a moment because that is the nature of a devotee. Either in waking or in sleep, a devotee of the Lord can never be free from thinking of Krishna's name, form, qualities, and pastimes. Thus, a devotee of Krishna can be conquered, can conquer both sleep and ignorance simply by thinking of Krishna constantly. This is Krishna consciousness or samadhi. So samadhi is considered to be the highest platform of perfection in yoga, right? So in the yoga, this one Ashtanga yoga, we see that there is yama niyama, like yama niyama, and there is like do's and don'ts, and then uh, like asana, pranayama, pratyahara. So then dharana, dhyana, and samadhi, right? So this samadhi is considered to be the highest level, and that requires a lot of circus, by Ashtanga yoga. But then a devotee of the Lord, he gets it very easily, by the way of like constantly remembering the Lord. Hmm? As Rishikesha, or director of the senses and mind of every living entity, Krishna could understand Arjuna's purpose in placing the chariot in the midst of the armies. Thus he did so and spoke as follows. Text 25. Bhishma Drona Pramukataha Sarvesham Chamahishhitam Uvacha Partha Pashyaitan Samavetan Kuruniti. So here the acharyas mentioned that like it's a very very tricky thing that what is that Lord Krishna is doing. He could have taken the chariot in front of Dushashan. He could have taken the chariot in front of other people whom Arjuna also had grudge towards. But then he is taking in front of whom? Bhishma, Drona, Pramukataha. So, no, like these Bhishma and Drona, where they are standing, so he's taking them there. Sarvesham cha Mahishitam, Uvacha Partha Pashyaitan. So he's telling to Partha, he's telling to Arjuna, Pashyaitan, no, please see, Samavetan Kuruniti. These are the Kurus who are standing in front of you. So, and so because like Krishna doesn't want everything to go smooth. No, he wants to trigger an emotional this one, no, depression in Arjuna so that he can speak Bhagavad Gita. If he takes in front of other people, then Arjuna will also get more enthusiasm to fight. But he is taking in front of his affectionate Bhishma and Drona. In the presence of Bhishma and Drona and all other chieftains of the world, the Lord said, "Just behold, Partha, all the Kurus assembled here." Purport. As the super soul of all living entities, Lord Krishna could understand what was going on in the mind of Arjuna. The use of the word Rishikesha in this connection indicates that he knew everything. So specific usage of the word here is also very important to note actually. So here Rishikesha is used. That means there is something that the Lord is doing with his capacity as all cognizant. The Lord is all cognizant, and no, he's using that particular capacity, and then he's doing something. Now, if he's mentioned as Bhakta Vatsala, that means he's using the capacity as a very dear maintainer of his devotees, right? So, now the kind of action that the Lord is doing, as the name of the Lord is used in the sloka, just to highlight or add more flavor into the whole thing, right? So the use of the word Rishikesha in this connection indicates that he knew everything, right? Okay. The word Partha, meaning the son of Pritha or Kunti, is also similarly significant in reference to Arjuna. As a friend, he wanted to inform Arjuna that because Arjuna was the son of Pritha, the sister of his own father Vasudeva, he had agreed to be the charioteer of Arjuna. Now, what did Krishna mean when he told Arjuna to behold the Kurus? Did Arjuna want to stop there and not fight? Krishna never expected such things from the son of his aunt Pritha. The mind of Arjuna was thus predicted by the Lord in friendly and joking. Okay, is my voice okay? Hare Krishna.
Yes, Suresh, it's okay.
So Chetan Bhu was saying like it is coming from far. It's low.
Yeah, it's coming from far, but
It's coming fine.
No, now it's okay, bro. Briefly, it was like that. Now it's okay.
Okay. Okay. That's good. Okay, so text 26. Tatra pashyat sthitan partah pitrannata pitamahan acharyan matulan bratran putran pautran sakhim statha swashuran suhrudaschaiva senayorubayorapi. There, Arjuna could see within the midst of the armies of both parties his fathers, grandfathers, teachers, maternal uncles, brothers, sons, grandsons, friends, and also his fathers-in-law and well-wishers. Purport. Um, okay. On the battlefield, Arjuna could see all kinds of relatives. Um, He could see persons like Bhurishrava, who were his father's contemporaries, grandfathers like Bhishma and Somadatta, teachers like Dronacharya and Kripacharya, maternal uncles like Shalya and Shakuni, brothers like Duryodhana, sons like Lakshmana. Lakshmana is the son of Duryodhana. And then, no, sorry. Hmm. Sons like Lakshmana, and friends like Ashwatthama, well-wishers like Kritavarma, etc. He could see all the armies which contained many of his friends. I'm sorry, Lakshmana, I'm not sure like whose son it is like. But then Arjuna's, it is to be like in the relationship of Arjuna's next generation. Text 27. तान् समीक्षस्य कौन्तेयः सर्वान् बन्धून् अवस्थितान् कृपया परयाविष्टो विसीदन्निदमब्रवीत्. When the son of Kunti, Arjuna, saw all these different grades of friends and relatives, he became overwhelmed with compassion and spoke thus. Text 28. Arjuna uvacha drishtvaimam svajanam Krishna yujutsum samupastitam Sidanti mama gatrani mukam cha parishushati. Arjuna said, My dear Krishna, seeing my friends and relatives present before me in such a fighting spirit, I feel the limbs of my body quivering and my mouth drying up. Right? So here the symptoms of depression starts. Okay. Purport. Any man who has a genuine devotion to Lord has all good qualities which are found in godly person or in the demigods. Whereas the non-devotee, however advanced he may be in material qualifications, by education and culture, lacks in good qualities. So this is one very important sloka. Yashasti bhaktir bhagavati akinchana sarvair gunas tatra samasate suraha harava bhaktasya kuto mahatgunan manorate nasti davato bahihi. So it says that Yashasti bhaktir bhagavati akinchana. So one who's having like a devotion towards the Supreme Lord, Bhagavati Akinchana, Sarvair Gunas Tatra Samasate Suraha. So all the good qualities that are present in the demigods will manifest in the body of such a nice devotee. And then Harava Bhaktasya Kuto Mahat Gunan. So if a person is not a devotee of the Lord, what good quality is there in him? No Manorathe Nasti Davato Bahihi. So he is only going on in his Manorath. So whatever qualities a non-devotee is exhibiting, it is because of the modes of nature. He may be affected by mode of goodness and he is displaying some good qualities. But the moment he will get affected by mode of passion and ignorance, the same person will display bad qualities. But then a devotee, a purely devoted soul, he is completely Krishna Graha Grihithatma. Sometimes devotee is described like that. So it's like somebody will say like Shani Graha is there. So like Shani is there for me. Like it is like making me do so many things and I'm getting into problems and things like that. So in the same way, devotee is called as Krishna Graha Grihithatma. So that means like he's favored by or he's controlled by Krishna. So when he's controlled by Krishna, automatically the good qualities will come out. It is for a person who is fully surrendered to the Lord, where Krishna has taken charge of him fully. So naturally the good qualities will come out. And if a person is partially surrendered, so then accordingly partial good qualities will come out, right? So according to the Lord's control that he is having on him. Okay. As such, Arjuna, just after seeing his kinsmen, friends, and relatives on the battlefield, was at once overwhelmed by compassion for them who had so decided to fight amongst themselves. As far as his soldiers were concerned, he was sympathetic from the beginning, but he felt compassion even for the soldiers of the opposite party, foreseeing their imminent death. And while he was so thinking, the limbs of his body began to quiver, and his mouth became dry, and he was more or less astonished to see their fighting spirit. Practically, the whole community, all the blood relatives of Arjuna had come to fight with him. This overwhelmed a kind devotee like Arjuna. Although it is not mentioned here, still one can easily imagine that not only were Arjuna's bodily limbs quivering and his mouth drying up, but he was also crying out of compassion. Such symptoms in Arjuna were not due to weakness, but to his soft heartedness, a characteristic of a pure devotee of the Lord. It is said, therefore, Yashasti Bhaktir Bhagavati Akinchana Sarvair Gunestatra Samasate Suraha Haravabhaktasya Kuto Mahatguna Manorathe Nasti Dhavato Bahihi. One who has unflinching devotion for the personality of Godhead has all good qualities of the demigods, but one who is not a devotee of the Lord has only material qualifications that are of little value. This is because he is hovering on the mental plane and is certain to be attracted by the glaring material energy. Right? So this is sloka from Srimad Bhagavatam, and so we were also discussing the same sloka before. So here we see that Prabhupada is giving credit to Arjuna, saying that all the symptoms of compassion and this kind of emotion, what Arjuna is showing is because he is a kind-hearted devotee. But then in very next sloka or immediate next in sequence, Prabhupada will say like, no, this is like petty weakness of heart, and it is not greatness and something like that. So we will see a completely opposite kind of purports coming in. So it is because analysis from different angles and the various acharyas are presented in various ways. So it is not a contradiction, but it is to the credit. It is we can actually see that there are multiple emotions that are actually going on, in the scene, and also there are lessons for our application. So we pure devotee can act in a different way, but then when we take lessons, so we have to take lessons in a different way. So that is also guided by the acharyas. They will give us. So here, this particular purport is showcasing how Arjuna is a great person. And in the next purport, we will see that how we have to take the application of this particular point. Okay, text 29. Veputuscha sharire me Roma harshasya jayate gandivam shamsate hastat pakchaiva paridahyate. My whole body is trembling, my hair is standing on end, my bow Gandiva is slipping from my hand, and my skin is burning. Purport. There are two kinds of trembling of body and two kinds of standing of hairs on end. Such phenomena occurs either in great spiritual ecstasy or out of great fear under material conditions. There is no fear in the transcendental realization. Arjuna's symptoms in this situation is out of material fear. You see, in the previous purport it was mentioned, these are all out of, these symptoms have come out of, compassion, and because Arjuna is a kind-hearted devotee. And in this purport it is mentioned, Arjuna's symptoms in this situation are out of material fear, namely loss of life. This is evident from other symptoms also. He became so impatient that his famous bow Gandiva was slipping from his hand, and because his heart was burning within him, he was feeling a burning sensation of the skin. All these are due to material conception of life, right? So how can a person be a pure devotee and he's having devotional emotions and then he's having a material conception? So this is quite contradictory. And this is how we may also see sometimes we will think like a pure devotee and suddenly we will think like a gross materialist. We will immediately start getting some sense gratificatory thought, where we cannot even imagine, sometimes very, very bad thoughts cross our mind. So why such thoughts are crossing? Just sometime before I was thinking how nicely I can serve Krishna, and now some really bad thought is going on in my mind. So this is how we are also. We also like are composed of this opposing kind of emotions, simultaneously at not in our life, right? So this there. We will see from 30 onwards tomorrow, right? So we will stop here. There is one question is there. So that is, what is the meaning of Govinda? Govinda, we saw the meaning in the purport. Govinda means one who is the, one who gives pleasure to the cows and to the senses. No, that is Govinda. And in one of the future purports also, we will see the meaning of Govinda in more detail. And who's Anantadev? Anantadev is expansion of Balaram, and he holds all the universes in his heads. And what is the difference? Different names of Krishna, like Madana Mohana means like one who is attractor of Cupid. Vittala, I forgot the explanation of that name, Vittala. Shama Sundar is the most beautiful blackish person. Jagannath means the master of the world. What is the meaning of Om Tat Sat? So that also we will see in the Bhagavad Gita like later on. So Om Tat Sat means the Supreme Lord, the absolute truth. Okay. Okay. So we will finish the session for today, and we will today evening we have Tuesday and Thursday we are doing Brahma's prayers. Today is Ekadashi also. So we will all get together again in the evening for our a special session on Brahma's prayers at 7 o'clock. Right? Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Hare Krishna.